My journey started off in prison. I was a drug addict, I was a drug dealer, I was getting high on my own supply. You know, like the usual story for a kid growing up on a council estate. My dad was a racist football hooligan, you know, so we weren't really cuddling and talking about spirituality and all the woo-woo stuff. We weren't talking about meditation and yoga. I went to the pub, drank Stella and pints and done cocaine and, you know, shouted at Chelsea fans. That was my upbringing. So the system that's been created with the money is giving you the money to get you then in debt, then you're stressed, then you're depressed, and then, you know, all that sort of stuff. And that's, to me, is just like one of the biggest illusions whatsoever. More people into this kind of Eastern philosophy. I think in the West sort of philosophy, it is about what you've got, searching or chasing for everything externally. But when I go over to Thailand or go over to India, it's all about the inner job. But millions of people are basically stuck. They're in patterns and they're going around on that conveyor belt. You know, the 9 till 5 grind, the ego's kind of in charge, they're listening to all the kind of news, the fear and the media and all that stuff. So millions of people are, I wouldn't say fast asleep because that sounds pretty judgmental, doesn't it? But kind of like lost, I suppose, and looking for that inner satisfaction. But the great thing at the moment is like millions of people are waking up. I don't remember going to school and learning anything about feelings, emotions, my thoughts.
Yeah.
And if I'm honest, it's the only thing I'm really interested in now, is like knowing how to feel good and how to think positive.
The good thing that we have now, which is a blessing, is that the internet has came around, hasn't it? And I think that's what is really helping us connect to each other and share ideas, and we can say to each other, look, we don't think this is working.
Yeah.
And I think from that change is happening.
And the great thing about YouTube is that you can watch a video and it could be like a 10-minute video and it will change the rest of your life. You know, and now it is becoming cool, it's becoming hip to wake up and then make the world a better place, because
that's going to be an incredible space.
It's going to be amazing.
This is Evolve. I am Rick Williams. Today I am sat with ex-convict, drug dealer, crack addict, turned life coach, speaker and yogi. He coaches young adults from underprivileged homes to find peace within. He's recently created a documentary on love and kindness and is the author of Wake the Fuck Up. What a name. Safe to say he's had one hell of an evolution. My guest today is none other than Brett Moran. Brett, thank you for joining us, man.
Rick, it's absolutely a pleasure to be here. I love what you guys are about. I love the vision and the mission for Evolve. Yeah, I'm excited, man, to get this cracking.
Thanks, man, dude. Thanks, man. Well, today we're here to talk about you. And to anyone looking into the viewfinder now, would see a yogi, they might see a speaker, a life coach, and it seems like you've got it kind of figured out. But it hasn't always been this way, has it? No. So where did your story begin? How did this begin?
Yeah, great question, man. So, I mean, first of all, I haven't got it figured out. I might seem like, you know, I know where I'm going, but if I'm honest, I'm just like anybody else. I'm just still making it up as I go along. I still make mistakes, but I suppose those mistakes are not as bad as what they used to be. I'm not smoking crack, I'm not sleeping with prostitutes, I'm not doing armed robberies, you know, with my mates. I suppose my problems now are whether to meditate on a cushion or whether to meditate on a mat. So, but I want to say that just because sometimes, as we was talking, you know, you see people and you think, wow, that guy's got it sorted out, and sometimes it seems like a hard jump to get to where that person is or to change your life. And so I think you can change your life, but you know, I haven't got it sorted. I'm just on the same path, just like everybody else, man. And yeah, my journey started off in prison. You know, I was, like you said, I was a drug addict, I was a drug dealer, I was getting high on my own supply. You know, like the usual story for a kid growing up on a council estate. My dad was a racist football hooligan, you know, so we weren't really cuddling and talking about spirituality and all the woo-woo stuff. We weren't talking about meditation and yoga. I went to the pub, drank Stella and pints and done cocaine and, you know, shouted at Chelsea fans. That was my upbringing. So, you know, inevitably you grow up and then you get into trouble, the drugs get harder. You know, and then they just get boring, and then the come downs get worse, and you feel empty inside. And I always say to my clients, it's like you've got a hole in the soul. And no matter how much you chase the drugs, how much you chase the women or even the success, that void, that hole, it just gets bigger and deeper. And so that's how I found myself. You know, it was just getting worse and worse. And thankfully, as crazy as this sounds, I was sentenced to prison, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. At the time, I didn't think that. But looking back now, after 10 years, it was like the best thing that ever happened to me, mate. Because I went to prison. I was actually on a drug deal in the prison library,
right.
And I was walking around like looking all shady and suspicious, trying to pretend that I'm like reading Shakespeare or something like that.
Right.
And this book just, it felt like it fell off the shelf. You know, maybe it just fell down, maybe someone pushed it, I don't know, but it felt like now, you know, in my mind, like the divine light pushed this book in front of me, and it was meant to be. And then I put this book up, and it was called Moment by Moment by Jerry Brazar, and it was just about mindfulness and meditation. And at the time, even though I was smoking crack and I had all this like crack psychosis, even though I was in prison, I thought if people saw me reading a book about meditation and mindfulness, they think I've lost the plot. That I'm joining some like God cult, or, you know, that I was going crazy. And I felt like it, you know, I really did think, oh my God, what am I doing? Finding religion. And, but with that said, I just felt so free. You know, I just picked this book up and I just felt it made perfect sense. I only read the back cover and it was like, slow down, breathe, like your thoughts are an illusion, your ego, pardon my language, but it's all bull. You know, it's not real.
So as soon as you read that, how did you feel?
Just felt so connected to some, I could say now what I believe in. I felt connected to source, you know, disassociated and disconnected from the ego, connected to my heart. Yeah. But back then, I never even had that link. I didn't know, you know, I'd never connect to my heart. I didn't know what that meant.
Do you think that, you know, when you talked about when you were taking drugs and selling drugs, do you think that voice was still there? It was just, was the voice still there for you, that this other voice, the connection, or do you think it was?
I don't. The only voice I had when I was taking drugs is the ego. You know, get more drugs, take more drugs, do naughty stuff, you know, and that was so loud. It controlled my life, it controlled my behaviours, like my actions. And then when I was in prison and I kind of felt this book, it was like a softer, kinder, gentle voice. And some people can call that God, you can call it consciousness, you can just call it positive thinking. I'm not really bothered what you label it. It just felt good. It just felt nice, and it felt like a bit of peace. Yeah. I found peace within, and I found peace inside prison. And so, like being a criminal and being a convict, I nicked the book, I just stole it. I stole the book, went back to my prison cell. Again, I hid it down my pants, like down my tracksuit bottoms. I didn't
stole the book.
Literally stole the book. I didn't want anybody to see it, because again, there's this perception, isn't it? You know, people getting spiritual and people getting woo-woo, and it's like they're religious. But I'm not religious whatsoever. I just think spirituality means you're waking up. But back then, I didn't know that. You know, I was following the crowd, and I worried what my mates thought of me, and you know, I was worried what all the inmates in prison would think if they saw me reading a book on meditation, because it was so alien to me.
So what would your current self, if you could drop back into that cell, what would you say to yourself at that point?
Amazing. That's a great. Yeah. I would say just trust in it, just go with it, just read it.
Did you think he'd listen?
Probably not. He would have laughed at me. Yeah.
Like, you're crazy.
Yeah, you're mental, mate. You're religious. But yeah, no. So I took the book back to the cell and read it. And it made sense. It was so simple. Pardon me. It was so simple. It was common sense. It was just breathe, you know, focus, reconnect your heart. And then the author shared a story about his daughter. I know you've got a daughter yourself, and I know your story a bit. And I had a daughter, you know, and I was in prison. I wasn't seeing her. I was on drugs and all that sort of stuff. And the author shared how important his connection was with his daughter, and it got me, man. You know, I was just like in that prison cell thinking, wow, what kind of father am I being? What role model am I being? So prison was great because it gave me an opportunity to look at all this ego, all my behaviours, look at my, you know, my peers and all that stuff. And then out of the blue, I have no idea where this came from. I put my hands together and I prayed to the sky. And I just, you know, I was looking up at this grey ceiling, you know, in this prison cell. And I just said, you know, if there's something up there, I'm begging for a second chance. Like, just give me a second chance. And there was no spiritual awakening. There was no divine light, you know. I just opened my eyes and I was still in prison. It wasn't like a Hollywood movie where like I saw God and started floating out. He opened the cell door. It was just something on that day ignited in my heart. Something ignited.
Just opened up?
Just opened up, yeah. And I've been following that for the last sort of 12, 15 years, I think it is now. Just following that and listening to it. But just want to share with people, you don't change overnight. You know, I came out of prison, within the first few hours I was drunk, back on the drugs, even though I told everyone I was going to change, even though I found this book on spirituality and I thought this is it. I got out of prison and I fell straight back into my old patterns.
Because the patterns are so strong, aren't they?
Man, yeah. They're like your identity, aren't they?
Yeah.
And if everybody else is doing it, it seems normal.
Yeah.
It seems normal if your mates are taking drugs and they're...
I thought it was completely normal.
Yeah.
But apparently it's not.
It definitely ain't that. This is normal.
This becomes
people waking
normal.
up, people coming together and going, actually, I can do something different with my life, or I can be who I want, or I can just find a bit of love and peace. That's normal.
And the whole time taking, I had a similar journey, not the same as yours, but with drugs. And the whole time, that all I wanted at that time was to feel that connection, to feel. That's what I was chasing. Yeah. Chasing to feel love, or to feel nothing, to not feel the pain.
Yeah.
But the whole time we had all the answers inside.
It's crazy. I think it's... Sorry, mate, go on.
No, you go.
Yeah, I think it's counterintuitive. You know, if you're going to like a coffee shop, you know, you walk into a coffee shop and there's a big door that you pull, what's the first thing most people do? They push the door, don't they? I've done it I've done it the other day. I pushed the door. It's like, your brain just doesn't sort of like compute. And so like you pull the door and you open it and then you walk through the door nice and easily. And I think that's like life. Most people are trying to push through life. They're searching externally for happiness, whether it's drugs, girls, success, money, wealth. And there's nothing wrong with that stuff, but if you're looking for that to make you fulfilled and satisfied inside, you're pushing through life. So it's counterintuitive. You've got to stop, and rather than open the door, you just open your heart and close your eyes and look inside. And then life becomes, as you know, I'm looking at you, it's like a reflection. It becomes so much easier. You feel happier and you find real love, rather than this kind of artificial love, yeah.
Inside job.
It's an inside job, yeah, waking up inside.
That's literally what happened to you.
Totally, mate, yeah, literally woke up inside. So yeah, I come out of prison, I went back to prison a year later, and just want to share that it wasn't like I didn't change overnight, you know.
What were the steps that you took?
So the first steps was meditating, started to meditate, started to connect to nature. You know, I'm really addicted to my nature now. It's just got such a consciousness of vibration. Again, that sounds a bit woo-woo, but you just feel good when you're in the park.
You feel good, yeah. Anyone could sit, you know.
Anyone, yeah. Everybody feels good when they're out in a bit of nature, on the beach or in the sun, you know. So I've been drawn to go on holidays, but I think it's just nature, it draws us to it. And so I started all that, but went back to prison, and I kind of went back with my mates and I got on the drugs. And then I just got so depressed. You know, Rick, I don't know if you've been there, where you just literally hate yourself and you hate life, and you know, no matter what you do, you can't break those patterns, and it just gets worse and worse. And then I went to Thailand, believe it or not, and my dad's wife took me to a temple, you know, and I got on my hands and knees, prayed to whatever it was, and I just said, I know I've screwed up again, and I know I promised you that I'll change, but give me a second chance, and I'll do everything I can. And then from there, my intuition, or that voice, started to get louder. And so I literally flew home from Thailand and left like London or South London where I lived, and I moved like down into the countryside and went and lived with my mum, and it was the best choice I ever made. I think we believe that the cards that we get dealt, the area that we live in and where we're born, is life. You know, so many people are sort of like, that's it, I'll live here for the rest of my life, I'll get this job, follow my footsteps of my parents. And so thankfully I kind of realised that I can give those cards back to the dealer. That sounds dodgy. And then pick a new card, pick a new set. Yeah. So I left, and that was the best choice I ever made. And then I started to, I became a volunteer, and this is something really important. I volunteered in a drug and alcohol drop-in centre for homeless people. And I realised then that it was about giving back. And that I'm really grateful for that, because that was like over 10 years ago, and it's a pattern that I've followed now. Everything I do is about trying to give back, and you feel so much more. Because the ego is all about getting women, getting money, getting houses, getting jobs, getting security. But it's just the ego, and it makes it stronger. And I realised volunteering for homeless people and drug addicts, it was all about giving. And so I followed that, and I've been to like Africa, I've been to India, and just volunteered in hospices and just done all that stuff. Maybe I'm doing it for me, maybe I'm doing it for him. You know, I think it's all connected. So you could say it's a selfless act, but you could then also say it's a selfless act. I just think the gift is in giving.
Well, it's when you're serving both at that point, and that's the harmony, I think, isn't it? You're serving your own needs while simultaneously serving other people.
Yeah, 100%.
That's a beautiful thing.
I think you learn more from giving. Like, you know, I could read all the textbooks about how to help people on drugs. I mean, my only qualifications, I got off of drugs, you know, and you learn on the job.
The best qualification you could have, though.
And then you learn on the job, don't you? You learn, and there's nothing better than human interaction, and you're both growing. What I realised was, like, I was growing just as much as I was helping people. You know, I was learning things that I would have never found in a textbook, like real life. And I think that's really important for us.
Yeah. I guess that's where I learn from. When I see when other people trigger emotions in me, I'm like, what is that?
Yeah.
And try and sit with it and find out what it is that I can learn from that. because we're all just reflections
Yeah.
of one another. It's mental, isn't it?
Yeah, mate, 100%. Yeah. And you just investigate those feelings, didn't you, and those emotions. So, and both of us, you know, like you're a bodybuilder, you know, you're a young kind of like good-looking guy. I'm a guy covered in tattoos. I'm like sort of a geezer. You know what I mean? It's like it's so refreshing to be able to talk about emotions and investigate in that. I remember years ago, I'd never talk about this stuff. Do you know what I mean? Most of the old people look at me thinking, "What is this geezer on about?" But this is where the transformation is. This is where, like we were talking earlier, this is cool. This is amazing. This is where more and more people are waking up to being real, just being authentic, rather than living the ego story.
Or other people's story.
Or other people's stuff, yeah.
So you talk about you feeling that like more people are waking up. Is that something that you're seeing in your life? That you're seeing more people waking up? How do you feel that, or where we are in time now, how do you feel that things are progressing?
Yeah. I suppose the first thing to look at and just to get real is like more and more people waking up, but more and more, millions of people are basically stuck. They're in patterns and they're going around on that conveyor belt. You know, the 9 till 5 grind, the ego's kind of in charge. They're listening to all the kind of the news, the fear and the media and all that stuff. So millions of people are, I wouldn't say fast asleep because that sounds pretty judgmental, doesn't it? But kind of like lost, I suppose, and looking for that inner satisfaction. But the great thing at the moment is like millions of people are waking up, whether it's doing yoga, meditation, becoming vegans or vegetarians, or just consciously eating healthy food, questioning where they get their materials from, their goods from. Millions of people are just starting to actually question this sort of old, outdated system. That's what it is, isn't it? It's just outdated. And I think that's like part of the ego, it's just trapped in it. So I think it's amazing. I wrote in my book that, we were just talking about it, that I was at Box Park getting some vegan food and I was just doing a little bit of writing, and there was these like young kids, they was in their 20s, come along, and like, you know, they had all the clothes on, they gave the walk, and I thought, all right, just be careful, Brett, you know, don't stare them out just in case they beat me up. And they sat next to me on this table, and you know what they was talking about? Conscious eating. They was talking about animal rights, making the world a better place. They was talking about peace and love. You know, and I was just thinking, this is amazing. You know, when I was their age, I was smoking crack. I thought all this spiritual stuff, I didn't even believe in it. I just thought it was like religious stuff. You know, and now it is becoming cool. It's becoming hip to wake up and then make the world a better place. Because
that's going to be an incredible space.
It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Totally.
It's beautiful that you're saying that even in that was East London?
In East London, yeah, in Shoreditch, yeah.
Awesome. So my next question is a bit of a game. So imagine that in the new world, right? We've got rid of politicians who aren't serving us, and we've hired in a board of people, and you have been hired in on this board to kind of give some advice about this new way of being. So in this space, what would the education system look like? How would that be?
Amazing question. Do I have to wear a suit?
You don't have to wear a suit.
I don't have to wear a suit. I can just wear my trainers.
Just wear your trainers.
Oh, perfect. Okay, yeah, cool. I'll take the job then.
Right. You got it.
Done. That's the best interview I've ever had. So how would the education system work? I think that's such a powerful question, Rick. I really do. I think because it all starts when we're kids. Mm-hmm. You know, it all starts at children and what they're being, I'm going to say, brainwashed to learn. You know, the system is brainwashing kids to be in a system, to be on that conveyor belt. And it ain't working anymore.
No, it's not working.
You know, the young kids are growing up with, you know, like self-harming, depression, all that stuff, addiction.
That seems normal. It's like,
just like talk about it like it's normal.
And it's not normal, and it doesn't have to be that way. Like, we made this game.
Yeah, we made that system.
Yeah.
And I'm not really into conspiracy theories. I don't waste my time going into it. I'd rather make change, you know. But it's kind of obvious that something's going on, and maybe we need to kind of direct people in a certain way, but brainwashing them and then like literally stealing their spirit and their soul. That's why they're becoming addicted and self-harming. So the way I would change it on the board, you know, I'd have my clipboard there, and I would be, you know, I'd be taking notes down, and my sort of like top strategies would be educate children on emotions and feelings and consciousness and the planet, how we can make the planet a better place. You know, all the stuff that we're basically into now, and we spent like 20 years to get here or 30 years to kind of get here basically, is like teach kids that at a young age, teach them the power of their imagination rather than tell them to stop dreaming. You know, tell them to dream bigger and
allow them to express it.
100%, yeah. And it's okay for boys to cry, or it's okay, you know, girls don't have to wear all the makeup, and it's not all about selfies. It's like, you know, that true love is inside. I don't remember going to school and learning anything about feelings, emotions, my thoughts. Yeah. And if I'm honest, that's the only thing I'm really interested in now is like knowing how to feel good and how to think positive. Yeah. I don't care about
You think that would be
algebra.
in the basics of the human manual, wouldn't you?
Totally, man.
I thought that's what school was about, to learn
Yeah.
about life.
Yeah, yeah, and you don't, do you?
Yeah.
I think you learn life through life. So I'd make school like, yeah, we'd go off on adventures.
Have amazing mentors.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
same
yeah,
stuff.
totally, man.
Yeah.
Doing projects like this.
But the good thing that we have now, which is a blessing, is that the internet has came around, hasn't it? And I think that's what is really helping us connect to each other and share ideas, and we can say to each other, look, we don't think this is working.
Yeah.
And I think from that change is happening. Like, you can self-educate, you can pretty much do anything you want. If you've got access to the internet now, I think it's safe to say if you want to go do something and learn something, you have that now. Before, 20 years ago, it didn't exist. You didn't know anything. You would have to go to a library and rent a book, or go to prison and have one fall off the shelf.
Yeah, totally, man. I think, and the great thing about YouTube is that you can watch a video and it could be like a 10-minute video and it will change the rest of your life.
Yeah, I've had lots of those.
Snap, man. I went vegan after watching, is it Gary Yourgofsky? I don't know if you've heard of that
No,
dude. Yeah, so basically he talks about vegan. It's a 30-minute lecture. And I sat there, watched this guy, I was like, boom, done. Made a choice, been vegan for like 3 or 4 years. And it's just like, because I watched a 30-minute YouTube clip and it changed my life. I never went to school. No one taught me about animals. Nobody taught me about love and connection and how when you eat that stuff makes you feel negative and it affects your thoughts. So yeah, you're right. The education that we've got now, the online education, is just powerful. Just so powerful that I think that's why there's millions of people waking up. That's why people are sort of waking up and seeing that it doesn't have to be that way. Again, you don't need to live those cards that we're dealt by our parents or the generations before. We can just literally wake up and do what we want to make us feel happy.
Yeah. So with you saying that, it leads on also brilliantly to the next point, which is, what would the food industry look like in this new world? Would they still allow stuff that goes on today? How would you approach that topic?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a vegan and I'm a vegetarian, but I'm not one of the preachers, do you know what I mean? I'm always like plugging it and I'm always sort of mentioning it, but I've got a lot of friends that are staunch, do you know what I mean? They're proper like animal rights, and I really do get that. For me, I think people need to come to their own
evolution.
Their own evolution, yeah. Because your taste buds have to go through a transformation, your mind has to go through a transformation, your heart and your soul. And I think when you start to get onto this path, that is inevitable. It's like, it's going to happen because your body doesn't want that. And when you eat certain foods like dead meat and eggs and all this kind of stuff, and milk, and the milk and dairy industry is just insane. When you eat that, for me and from people, the clients I've worked with, it makes you negative, like negative thoughts, negative feelings. And so then it's just like a drug addict. If you keep taking drugs, you know what the outcome's going to be. So if you keep eating this food and you keep sort of drinking the sort of drinks and the milk and stuff, and you keep feeling negative and depressed, etc., then it's kind of like you're your own worst enemy. You've got to wake up and then just go, actually, I don't need it anymore, and change. And it's such a myth around it that you need all that stuff when you don't, like your protein. I'm sure like through being new bodybuilder and all that sort of stuff, or like getting into yoga as well. So actually, I feel lighter eating raw food, and I feel more buzzing without all that stuff.
Yeah.
So the future of it, I don't know. I think I'd leave that one to the vegans that are bang on it. Do you know what I mean? I think it's obvious that the world's changing and the way that farming industries and all that stuff is going. It's inhumane. It's just inhumane.
And it doesn't. We're not looking after the whole system, and we're not looking after the agriculture and the people as a whole. So just it's all out of whack, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all that thing. It's all ego, isn't it?
So next, what would the health system look like?
Meditation, lots of yoga,
Yeah.
and more people into this kind of Eastern philosophy. I think in the West, with the West sort of philosophy, it is about what you've got, searching or chasing for everything externally. But when I go over to Thailand or go over to India, it's all about the inner job. It's about everything internally. So I think, and it's changing, like the NHS are now prescribing meditation, they're putting out like acupuncture. And so we're starting to get onto this stuff that they've been doing for thousands of years. And I just think we're going that way. Yeah. I had an amazing conversation with a guy the other day in a vegan place, and this Indian guy, and we was talking, and he was saying in his like religion, what he believes, his like leader, his teacher, his guru, there's no doubt in his mind that this world is becoming better. There's no doubt in his mind that the system's just going to disappear and everybody's going to be back into this like beautiful place where we used to be. And I was like, wow. And this guy, just like, it was amazing and so refreshing. And so part of me is kind of like trusting in that. Like I suppose when you change your life or I changed my life, there was a part of me that just knew that it was going to happen. not from an egotistical place. It was just like I just trusted in it. Yeah, and I think that's the same with the world. I think this consciousness or this positive charge, it is actually changing. It's like we can't get out of it. People are waking up, whether you like it or not. And I think that health system is going to go down where more people focus on the inside, rather than dishing out all these tablets, making thousands of pounds, you know, for the pharmaceuticals, millions of pounds or billions of pounds. We're just going to start looking inside, and that's when that system will start to go, I think. Hope.
Same.
Yeah.
So what would the monetary system look like in this new world?
Oh, good one. So, okay, for me, being really honest about money and that stuff, I've been on the path where selling drugs and dealing, I didn't have no good relationship with money. I didn't really care about money. I used to get it, spend it. My dad was rubbish with money, he never saved a penny. And he always like probably didn't brainwash me, but he just told me his beliefs that you have to work hard, money's not the root of all happiness. And so I had that belief and went down that path. And then I went to Thailand and stayed with the monks and done some meditation. And you know, you get there and there's no desire, you don't want no attachment, and so you don't have no money and all that stuff. And that was good. But then when I looked at my bank account, you know, I was in like 15 grand's worth of debt for a business that didn't work out, you know, and I was just, it stressed me out a little bit. Not that I wanted the money to be happy, but it's just, I just didn't want the worry. It was like an extra worry I didn't need. And so then I started to get into a lot of personal development, listening to like Brian Tracy, Jack Canfield, you know, all this sort of stuff. And so it was going against all my childhood beliefs, going against all my spiritual beliefs. And they're saying like, go after what you want. There's nothing wrong with having money. And then I just come to this conclusion that money really doesn't give a shit whether you've got it or not. Yeah. And money doesn't really, it's not negative and it's not positive. Money's just a piece of paper. And so for me now, it's like I've changed my beliefs to think the more money I've got, the more freedom I've got, the more I can go over to Africa and say, you know, yeah, it's $4,000, you know, build the school that you need to go, or go and do the thing that we did a few weeks ago for the kids in Istanbul, for the Syrian kids, and we raised like $4,000. And so to me, I've got no negative beliefs around money, and it's not that I'm chasing it and that I want kind of like think the money's going to make me happy, but I just think money's just money, and we have some kind of barter systems, like having a goat or the grains, you know, years ago. It's if you just kind of like wake up to it, it is an illusion, and if you're chasing it to be happy and satisfied, like you was talking earlier, if you're chasing it to get all that stuff, then it ain't going to fulfill you. It will never satisfy you, because that's an inside job. So I would say focus on here, then go after the money, or not go after it, but just have it and just spend it without any faults, or just do whatever you want with it, because money's just money. It doesn't care. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense.
Yeah.
I suppose anyone also can have money and have an abundance of money if you just spend less than you make.
100%, yeah.
And debt being the kind of crux of what can really make you do things maybe that you don't want to do, whether it be you've got drugs on debt and it leads you to do stuff that get you further and further in that hole away from your alignment.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And I think if you look at the system, and now we're going to get into the conspiracy stuff, if you look at the system, what does it do? It teaches you to spend your future. Take the car, you know, get this nice shiny car so all your mates will think, wow, or the woman will jump in it so you can take her to the park. You know, it's like, just buy the car and spend your future, or get a mortgage and spend your whole life paying a mortgage off. So the system that's been created with the money is giving you the money to get you then in debt, then you're stressed, then you're depressed, and then, you know, all that sort of stuff. And that's, to me, is just like one of the biggest illusions whatsoever. And so if you really not you, but like if people really ask themselves, what do I really believe about money? Where did that stuff come from? Chances are it's come from the system. It's taught you to get on this treadmill.
And the system isn't some weird thing that is separate from us.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's evil.
Yeah,
but,
no.
not at all. But I just think, you know, there's some people who were born just like we were, and they had an idea. And that idea became to sell cars or whatever. And through that idea, through the system, they just become people who might be a big car company now.
Yeah.
And their agenda is to sell cars.
Yeah.
And any which way they do that, they're good for. But if that doesn't serve you getting a car and paying £200, £300, £400, £500 a month for it, and that's going to make you unhappy for a moment of feeling good driving the car, for years of paying it off, it just doesn't
It's just,
don't do it if it doesn't serve you. But
Yeah.
if it does serve you and you want to be unhappy for years doing that, then
go for it.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've made that mistake.
Give me a lift. And I think what you're saying there is instant gratification.
Yeah.
So we live in a society where it's instant gratification, whether it is the car. You know, take the car, boom, I've got the car like the next weekend. Most people are in the instant gratification because that's your ego. And I see the ego, the faults and the system like a heroin addict. You know, it wants. It's never happy just being peaceful and still. It just wants something. And so you imagine trying to get a heroin addict off of the faults, off of that stuff. You know, they don't, taking drugs or being an ego, it's like instant gratification, give it to me straight away. So a lot of people are not into, was it like short-term pain for long-term gain? Yeah. So like, okay, I'll save up for my car. Yeah. 'Cause there's nothing wrong with having a nice car, but don't get yourself in like 30 grand's worth of debt and pay it off for 30 years or you know, or more. Nothing wrong. I'm not saying that. I think it's amazing. I believe consciousness, in my mind, it wants you to have the things that you want. Like, so it's kind of like, if you want to have a car, if you want to have a project, a movie project, you've got to come out of your comfort zone. I've got to start saving up, or I've got to challenge my beliefs around money. And so I think consciousness, I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting stuff. I think consciousness wants you to grow and get this stuff. But when the system kind of manipulates you into getting instant gratification, that's the complete opposite. And then you do get in debt, and then you do lose yourself. And before you know it, you're like 60, 70, and you look back over your life and think, fuck, where did that go? I've just kind of like wasted my whole life. Well, as if you wake up 60, 70.
But I suppose that's the great thing, the blessing that we've had being born into consciousness in this time, is that we have been able to see that.
Yeah.
And then choose, actually, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's all it is, isn't it? Just choosing no.
Choosing no. Everything's choice, isn't it?
Yeah. So, we've got some profound and some profane questions to ask you. So, this is a quick fire round. So, firstly, what book influenced you the most? I think I know this one.
Moment by Moment by Jerry Brazil.
What would your last meal be?
Oh, great question. Whatever we're having tonight at the vegan lounge. Something vegan, something healthy. Yeah.
What motivates you?
What motivates me? Connection and people.
3 things you take to a desert island.
3 things I take to desert island. Brilliant. Man, you stumbled me. 3 things I take to desert island. A yoga mat. Some books.
Is yoga on sand not?
Actually, yeah, it's a good point. I can keep that, can't I?
Yeah, you've only got 3.
I've got 3, yeah.
3 to go.
Man, these kind of questions, like, they get me thinking. And I'm thinking, I'm better at the flow. What would I take to a desert island? I'd take my daughter.
Yeah.
They've not got coconut. Is it a desert island with coconut trees?
Yeah, there's coconut trees in this
Brilliant, I've still got 2 to go. So I'll take my daughter. I would take my laptop.
Yeah.
So I can connect to everyone. I'll take you.
Oh, thanks,
Nice,
man.
We can do some yoga.
What's too serious to be joking about?
What's too serious to be joking about? I think depression. Definitely depression. I heard a couple of comedians talk about depression and self-harming. And yeah, my little cousin passed away a few weeks ago. She's only in her 20s and self-harming since she was 15, drugs and all that stuff. So I love comedy. I'm a joker myself, but I think sometimes it's just a bit raw, and depression and that self-harming and that kind of negativity. I think it's just a bit of a touchy subject, but that's maybe because of my personal stuff. So yeah.
Oh, that makes sense, man. So, biggest spiritual inspiration?
Biggest spiritual inspiration, my daughter.
Your daughter?
Yeah, totally,
Beautiful.
man. Pure, when she was born, it's just pure consciousness, no ego, just connected to source. So I listen to all the great teachers, I read all the books, you know, I do all the stuff, but I think it's the connection that we've got with like our children and our family that teaches the most.
Yeah, my daughter teaches me stuff all the time.
Yeah, how old is your daughter?
She's 6.
Amazing.
And
man.
yours?
Yeah, 14.
14?
15
Wow.
this year.
Oh.
Yeah. 6 is a great age, right?
Yeah, it's a mint age, yeah.
That's just best spiritual teacher there is, right?
Yeah, there's, yeah. She comes out with stuff all the time. I'm like, what? Where did you get that from?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nuts.
And they say it how it is. It's like, there's no ego, just go boom. And you're like, wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Little Buddhas walking around.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is next for you, Brett, and where can people connect with you?
So for next, we're going to get some food. What do you mean longer term?
Longer term.
Okay, next for me, I'm halfway through making a documentary. I'm still, in the process of that. I've interviewed some amazing people, and my target is, or my goal, I suppose, is to reach 1 million people with my book by 2020. So I'm talking at the moment with some high secure prisons, and we're getting like all my books in the prison libraries.
Where can people find your book?
And people can find my book at www.wakethefckup.com. So it's wake the fuck up without the U. So www.wakethefckup or Brett-Moran.com, and they can download a free extract so they can read the first chapter just to see if it's their cup of tea.
I'm looking forward to reading mine.
Amazing, man. Yeah.
Any documentary?
Documentary is called One Thing Leads to Another. Just like how everything is connected, a choice leads somewhere else. My choice in prison led to where I am today. So I think one thing leads to another. And it's a film about love, kindness and connection. And it's just me going around with like a few different cameras, interviewing some real spiritual people and just having a laugh, man. And letting the film is actually making itself. Like I had the idea, and it's literally, the film is one thing has led to another. Yeah. You know, it's insane. So yeah, you can check that out. That won't be out probably until about 2017. So yeah.
But if they can connect with you on social media to keep up with that?
Yeah, so I've got a YouTube channel called Brett Moran TV. I do a daily vlog.
Right, nice.
And I've got Instagram, Brett Moran TV. And so yeah, come and connect with me. Facebook, you know, just ask me anything. I love connecting, like seriously. I am addicted to people. And I love it.
Great thing to be addicted to.
Yeah, yeah.
And yes, that's it. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story today. Brett, I'm sure it's helped. It's helped and touched my heart. I'm sure it's done that, and hope it's done that for those who are watching too. Thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, big love from here in London. Thank you so much. Thank you, Brett.
Mate, amazing. Can we come in for a hug?
Yeah, we could.
Amazing, man.
Thanks, man, dude.
I really appreciate it. Thanks, man. I loved it. Loved it. Feeling cool?
We've done it. Oh, fuck. 2 interviews in one day. Those fucking.
It's fucking. Turn the camera off. Let's get the drugs out. I was joking. Don't touch drugs. Kids, whatever you do, it's just not worth it.
My filters that enable me to only interact with the physical 3D reality were blown out. So I'm receiving too much feedback from other dimensional realities within this universe. As a kid growing up with that type of dynamic going on, it's very difficult to fit into the world. What my parents didn't know is that for 13 years of my life, when they thought he was mentoring me, he was actually torturing me in these rituals. So after 13 years of getting tortured, basically at 19 I escaped from this situation and had to put myself back together again. So people portraying people who get away out of those situations, the story usually stops when they escape. But what people don't know is that that's when everything really begins. I spent a while swinging completely the opposite direction from all the spiritual stuff, because in my mind I was like, this is what got me into trouble. I don't want anything to do with this. So I swung into professional sports, which is easy to do if you dissociate from pain. I had been prevented the 4th time, yet again, from killing myself, and I was sitting there and I was like, there can't be any in between here, Teal. Like, you're either gonna commit to life or you're committing to death. Like, there's nothing in between. Religion serves social control, that's what it does. So it's like you're taking spiritual information, you're trying to shove it through a filter which never had the best interest of people at heart. It had the best interest of people in charge at heart. So it's not a filter you can jam that information through and get anywhere good with it. Money was actually a very smart concept when it was first made. A lot of people think it was completely evil. It's not really that. It's then when this very smart tool was made, obviously the people who are the most capitalistic and narcissistic and sociopathic were like, oh, that's genius, let's take control of that. You can't exploit all of the resources at the bottom of a pyramid and expect the top of the pyramid to stand, which is what we've been doing. Awakening to all of that is to basically get out of the matrix. So if you want to understand what that feels like, it's like waking up in the matrix. We all watched that movie, right? That's what it feels like if you're having a spiritual awakening, because suddenly you're like, wait, from this new perspective that I'm looking at, a 9-to-5 job in an office doesn't make sense for anyone. Wait, if I'm waking up, look at what we're doing to our kids. Look at how we talk to them. Oh my God, look how we talk to each other. Oh my gosh, there's distance between me and everyone else. So it's basically waking up to the state of the world that is so hard. Now in this day and age is this great polarization, where the gap basically between the conscious and the unconscious is getting wider and wider and wider, and so we're being called to integrate it or die, basically.